Hey everyone, welcome back to the Center for Off-Road Research, Shenanigans, and Science. And a lot of you are familiar with the barrage motor. I've got some heat sinks on it. And tonight I pulled the transmission out of it. The cover's still on there, but I pulled it out because I'm installing a PN90 instead. And I have that PN90 mount, which is really good because it's got a lot of metal. It pulls the heat out of the motor. I've never had this get above 120 degrees yet using my laser temp sensor. And the reason I'm talking to you tonight is to show you what I've done. Previously I told you guys not to use the 10 tooth pinion because what it will do is lower that motor so low that it comes in contact with the drive shaft, and it will do that. But what I've done here, because I really want to run this 8-tooth pinion with the PN Racing gear, and when you drop it all the way down, the mesh is a little loose, but it'll work. And what you'll see is, I don't know if you can tell really well, but the motor and drive shaft are so close to each other, you're not going to have a lot of clearance. So what I've actually done here is sort of round off the edge of this. If you look at the other side, I didn't round it, and it's a sharp corner. And there's a lot of meat there still, and I've rounded that so that my drive shaft doesn't get into the motor. I've also just barely shaved the end yoke because it also wants to get up there. Let's see if I can pass the paper through there. I can't put that through there. It's pretty tight. Let's try this paper. Yeah, it's still touching. I can put it in there, but it's right there. I might have to shave that a little more, or just raise the motor a little bit, just a fraction, and hope the gear mesh isn't too loose. So I'm going to raise that up just a tiny bit, just to make sure that there's enough clearance between that end yoke and the motor itself. But by rounding it off, I was able to gain a little more clearance. The drive shaft will go on this, and I may end up thinning the drive shaft for when I can get a positive angle on that now, but with the drive shaft on it, it will increase the diameter of it. And let me see if I just have one I can slip on there. Yeah. So the drive shaft, well, it's got some angle on it. Might be okay. But what I'll probably end up doing is figuring out where that drive shaft is going to meet the motor and just thin it a little bit along that rim where it touches right at the end of the motor bell. So maybe it won't even be necessary, but it does need to have the end yoke clear the motor. That's a big problem there. And here's one more note before I go to bed. Before I did this, my rig had a heavy lean to the right, and I could not figure out why, and it felt more pressure leaning to the left than it did the right. And I was checking, I swapped springs over, I was checking link clearances because I bend them for high clearance. What it turned out to be is where the joint, let me zoom in and see if I can get this pictured, but where the upper control arm goes into the servo mount, that was actually bound, yeah, right in there where the upper control arm goes in. It's not a good picture of it, but that was actually hitting the link and bending this link. So what I did was I kind of V-shaped it to match the shape of the upper control arm, and now it sits level, and I'm super happy about that because I, for the life of me, could not figure out why some of these sit sideways, and I just thought it was due to the fact that you got a motor on one side and nothing on the other, and it turns out that it's got a tiny lean, but nothing like it was. That is the motor weight, because I just put a PN90 in there, and had to reverse the skid plate to do it. I also had to cut the rear link, or the rear drive shaft, a little bit, or it would not compress, and I had to put the long slip joint, or slip yoke, whatever you call it, on the front. It goes to about here, but that's enough. It'll handle it. And at full compression, the drive shaft does hit my PN70 motor, like I was talking about, but I don't think I'll ever see full compression on this because it has springs and it's not heavy enough to sit down that low. So I've managed to clearance that using a 0.5 modulus 8-tooth pinion gear with a 2mm aperture for the motor output shaft, and the Hot Racing 42-tooth 0.5 modulus gear as well. So I've got a 4-to-1 ratio, which is just about the same as stock PN, and with the where'd I put those? I have them somewhere. The PN gears you can buy for this this modification, if you're going to put a PN90 in, you don't have to use the PN gears. You can use the Hot Racing ones. They do work. They'll be a little noisier because it's a 0.5 modulus instead of a 64 pitch, and 64 pitch is the pitch instead of modulus is what they use in racing for mini Z's. So it's a little bit finer if you do the Hot Racing gears, or I'm sorry, the PN Racing gears. You're going to get a better mesh. It's a little bit finer. The Hot Racing ones are probably stronger because the gears are bigger. The teeth are bigger, but they're going to make more noise. So, and they won't run quite as smooth. But it's pretty late here, and I don't want to wake anybody up. So, everybody have a good night. Talk to you later.